Tracy. All right, we're live. I'd like to bring tonight's meeting of October 4th into order. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councillor Moore.
Here.
Councillor Robichaud.
Here.
Councillor LaRochelle.
Here.
Councillor Lunt.
Here.
Councillor Fellows.
Here.
Councillor Smith.
Here.
Councillor Kane.
Here.
All right. First day back.
That's all good.
All right. First item is good news and recognition.
Is there anybody from council or from the audience that has any good news or recognition? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the next item.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask if we can move the Water Department General Manager Chuck Harrison to the next section.
Council all good with that?
Yes.
We appreciate you coming.
All right. So, does everybody have the drawings in front of them that I submitted? Kind of the block drawing, or no?
Actually, I don't have mine up front. I did actually.
So I don't have. Everyone's gonna have to share a little bit.
They were in the packets or actually online, so if people actually.
If you run
Well, just so you
Yeah.
can see it, so we can. Might help you.
Basically, the drawings of the two towers and how it's looped in between, I believe, right?
And this is a super high level overview of the department. By no means is it, it's just diagrammatical to kind of show you what we're looking at. You've got the upper valve on the top of the page, basically Route 9 and Wing Street. At the bottom, you've got the lower valve, which is Blethen, and that's what separates the high pressure from the low pressure. So Lisbon is high pressure, Lisbon Falls is low pressure. So it's very easy for us to get water from Lisbon to the falls, not backwards. So those valves are always shut unless we need to get water from one side to the other. And the reason that we're talking is because we're implementing corrosion control, which does quite a few things. It inhibits corrosion. That's mostly on pipes. So it's the pipes, the water mains, and the water lines in one's house, because that's generally where any lead and copper comes from. It's not from the water department, it's the lead solder that's leaching from homes within the department. It also stabilizes water quality, and again, this is very high level overview, but it reduces our chlorine demand as well. So the next steps that we are going through is construction. We've been going through for probably a year. You know, a lot of it has to do with some of our COVID stuff where we order stuff and it's going to show up when it wants to. Some stuff we waited for 8 months, some stuff we're still waiting on, but we're probably within the next couple of weeks getting ready to rock and roll with this. So there'll be a lot of Facebook posts that kind of explain what's going on, but what we have to do with the department is to get Lisbon side, the Lisbon Falls side, chlorinated, because there's not much chlorine that actually gets over there. And per state standards, we don't have to have chlorine, but once we put the corrosion control, which is a chemical called polyorthophos in, then we actually have to add the chlorine, because polyorthophos can make stuff that likes to grow. So we don't want stuff to grow in the water, so we have to put the chlorine in there. So the intent is to basically shut this valve under the Lisbon Falls tank off. So we take that tank out, open the two valves, and then water will flow from Lisbon, from Moody Wells up on the left corner of the drawing, and the bottom Bower Wells into the system, because they will be chlorinated, and then we will chlorinate the system. Previous to this, you see that I've put tank mixer in, and those are actually mixers that sit in the tanks. So the Lisbon tank, the mixer sits on the bottom because it's a 50-foot tank. The Lisbon Falls, it sits about at 50 feet because it's a 100-foot tall tank, and it mixes that water. So once I shut that valve at the bottom, I'm going to pump chlorine up 100 feet in the tank, turn the mixer on, and then that tank will just get mixed overnight because that mixer will mix that water within 24 hours. It'll be chlorinated. Then once we get those bugs worked out, that's when we'll start adding the new chemical for corrosion control. But it's going to be a process. So it's lots of sampling to get this going. So basically, once we shock that tank or get chlorine in that tank, the state has already been out and said we're good to go with the work they've seen, so we can start doing the chlorine process. And once the chlorine process, we get all our headaches done, then we'll add the second chemical and start test, sample. So this does put us in higher sampling rates. So instead of having 20 homes we have to sample for lead and copper, it bumps us up to 40. If anyone's tried to get 40 people to volunteer for something, it's not always easy. So we sent out, actually this week we'll send out 160 letters to houses to hopefully say they will sample with us. But I have to get those get them back to the state and get those approved because they're level 1 or tier 1 homes, which are built between 82 and 87. That's when the lead solder was really prevalent, and that's those specific houses are the ones that I have to get. I can't just pick random houses. I wish I could, but this doesn't work that way. Any questions so far?
I just wanted the mixing valve addition of the mixing valve was to cure what problems?
Well, it does numerous things. It mixes the water in the tank. When we put them in, we also have the tanks cleaned. So the water at the top of the tank, and this was middle of summer, the guys were up there and it was 120 degrees just on top of the tank at 100 feet tall. So the water at the top was in the 80-degree range. They get to the bottom and it's 50. So that same principle goes throughout the winter time. It gets ice dams that can create, and if you got a big block of ice going up and down your metal tank, not good. But so it helps do the temperature, so all the water's the same temperature. The chemical can bond to whatever it needs to bond to as it's being mixed. In the wintertime, I'm hoping, and this isn't proven yet, that if we get the same temperature water going through the water main, we don't have as many main breaks. So that's, in theory, that's a good, what we hope for.
I guess the question that I appreciate you coming in for one. That it's good to actually have the public to be able to hear it, especially on TV, and hopefully we make this more of a regular thing, just so people can be updated on what's happening. That's be greatly appreciated. I guess from business owners, people, restaurants, and stuff, what would be the concerns? I mean, is there anything that people ought to be looking out for that I mean, people call with a lot of concerns, but is there any particular ones? If you're in the food industry or making beverages, is there anything that you would be concerned about with the process?
No, I mean, there are certain chemicals you put in water that turn it purple, pink, just different colors, but polyorthophos is not one of them. Because what it does is it's a barrier on the lining of your pipe. So it doesn't allow stuff to grow or anything else in the pipe. So hopefully, after we get it in for time and the water just goes, it just collects on the outside and it just makes it slippery, if that makes sense, so that anything that wants to attach to it doesn't attach to it. So it helps with the iron, and it also helps with calcium buildup. So that's a very good benefit for us, is when we've got water with lots of calcium, so lots of screens get clogged, so it helps to keep that in a soluble form. It's a natural substance, so not like it hurts you, the calcium itself.
Now, once this actually happens, I was just once you start, it's an ongoing process, right? So this isn't something you do for a short period of time, stop. Once
I
you
wish,
start it,
but yes.
you got to keep it going, right?
Yep, it's for eternity.
We've had a lot of, several citizens very interested in corrosion control because of the water corrosion in their own homes and so forth.
Yep.
And hopefully this addresses the issues that have been a concern.
And it's not an overnight thing. It's going to take some time for that, like, barrier to line the pipes. I'm a little bit more worried about the calls we'll get once people can smell chlorine a little bit, because if you're not used to it, it does.
It's different.
You'll have a smell. And it's not going to be a horrendous smell because there's not a ton of chlorine. It's just we have to have enough in the very farthest house to be detect it.
I've noticed it already at Lisbon Center, the chlorine smell lately.
Yeah, and I think that's, once we get the mixers really going, hopefully you're going to get the same water all the time.
We've had chlorination on this end of town for quite some time, though, right?
Yep.
From the Moody well.
It's Moody we do chlorinate at Moody, but there's the Bower well down on the drawing that does not chlorinate. So you get a mixture of, you might get chlorinated water one day, just depending on if this person's using their sink and that person's flushing a toilet or whatever. So there's not really a way that I can guide chlorinated water one way or the other. So the best option is just to do it all. So the chlorine, is it overpowering at times?
Well, I mean, you can smell it. Now, recently you can smell it. I haven't smelled it.
Yeah, because we leave it at 0.8 parts per million at the treatment plant. So depending on which route it goes, that might just get a pocket of chlorinated water a little bit more one day than another.
Any other questions from the council? I was asked to ask you a question. So, there's a lot of information on a lot of the federal money to improve infrastructure and water, and we're actually having a great improvement right now for Main Street, which I think you found some pretty old pipes there, right?
Yep.
Pretty old,
yes.
Like 1800s or?
Yeah, there was some of that, and there was a fire at one point in time, and there was some pipe that got exposed during that as well.
Yeah, interesting. And in town, actually, infrastructure is pretty old. Is there any hope in the future to actually have any of that federal money to actually improve our infrastructure when it comes to water? I'm not sure if the water department's looking into that. Or.
Oh, yeah. We had a meeting about it today with the Maine Rural Water Department about some funding that's out and available. They kind of earmark it for here and earmark it for this. So if you're not needing that or this, you kind of have to go different ways. Our biggest struggle, I guess, challenge right now is lead and copper services. Or it's the lead and copper, and then on top of that, we have the services that we have to identify. So we have to identify every single service and what material it's made of in the department. So a lot of them we're going out and hydro-excavating each side of the curb stop, and then we look down and we say, okay, that's copper, check, check. If we have the records, I think I have about 700 more to get done by October 24th of 24. October 16th of 24. So once that's in, then the feds say, and it was a meeting today that they don't know exactly what they're going to do yet. The rules aren't, this is what you have to do, but exactly how you're going to do it and have to do it aren't there yet. So that's something we have to get done, because if we can't just say, yeah, we didn't get it done. It doesn't work very well. So once we get that list in, then we may or may not have to submit at that same time how we're going to remedy any lead services we have. Right now, it's gone back and forth as to who pays for it, whether it's the customer or the department, and different things with your private line after the curb stop. So that's where we're hopefully have some of that federal money to do some of that infrastructure stuff. They've guaranteed $5 million over the next 5 years. That doesn't go very far.
No, not at all.
Not when you look at, if it was $5 million to Maine, yeah, that might, well, it was 5 million to Maine, but every state is different, but there's not going to be a ton of it there. So
We could chew up 5 million here in town pretty easily, probably.
yeah, and well, we don't have a ton of lead services that I've found. There are some known ones in the past. Once we find them, we get rid of them. So we go to the main, and it's usually a lead gooseneck. So where you tap the main, it goes up and it's a gooseneck. So in case anything shifts, it can move. But they didn't know lead was not that great for you back when they put them in.
And you're probably removing some of that on Main Street, right? Because I believe some of the areas up on Main Street actually had quite a bit of. From what I've seen some stuff out there that
Yeah,
was,
there's been some
Yeah.
customers that have done their service all the way to the house.
Yeah.
We've documented what lines they had when we had the option
Yeah.
to see it. So
Yeah, well, great.
Yep.
As long as they're actually, it's always nice to see our infrastructure improving because
Yeah.
we definitely have some older infrastructure, and just replacing Main Street's gonna be a great boost to that.
In the state of Maine, where does Lisbon's water quality fit?
Better than some, not as good as others. I mean, it's a hard question.
Wow, that's pretty.
I don't know how to answer.
I mean, do
that
they
question.
rate? Do they rate it like good, really good? Wow, this is great. I mean, what is Lisbon rated at?
I haven't searched for it, so I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know.
I drink it, and it tastes fine to me. If that helps.
Well, to think what you could say is that it meets all the standards that are required.
Right, we far exceed or well under any state limits. So if the limit for X amount of material in the water is X, we're well under X. So a lot of the stuff people say, all the PFAS scares. We've been testing for PFAS for years and we're fine. So that's not one that we have to worry about. But again, that's the state guidelines right now. Maine has that limit of PFAS at 20 parts per quadrillion. I think that's it. But Colorado's different. California's different. All the states have different guidelines. So it's hard to say, it's kind of a subjective, how does our water rate? Good thing
It's
is
safe,
we have it.
though, right? I mean, it's safe, so.
It's safe.
It's safe. That's an important part.
Yeah, and we're not running out.
Yeah,
So.
that's good.
I mean, I know wells around have gotten hit with lack of rain, but our wells are fine.
That's good. Any other questions, Council? Sienna, we thank you very much for coming in, and hopefully we can see you again in the future.
Yeah.
Safe ride home.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
Next item is public hearings. Once the chair opens the public hearing, those present who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address the council chair. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record. First item, amendments to Chapter 14, General Assistance Maximums and Appendices.
I'll open a public hearing. Anybody's here to speak on it or not allowed movement? And that is interesting about us categorized in the LA area. I mean, I read through that after. It's kind of unique, not Androscoggin County, but LA. So, not seeing any activity, we'll close the public hearing. Next one, please.
Next is amendments to ground-mounted solar energy system ordinance.
We'll open a public hearing. Seeing no movement, we'll close the public hearing.
Next hearing is amendments to the library department fee schedule.
Open a public hearing. Library fee schedule change. Seeing no movement, we'll close our public hearing.
All right. Next item is audience participation and response for agenda items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address items or issues that are on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record.
Anybody have any interest in speaking on anything that's on tonight's agenda? This would be your opportunity to get to speak or comment. If you, tonight we probably won't have a whole lot of public input at that particular time. So Cheryl, if you'd like to speak on it, you can. This would be a good opportunity.
Hi, good evening. My name is Cheryl Haggerty, and I'm here to represent the ATV and snowmobile clubs. We're trying feverishly to connect them. We've even taken one of your council members for a ride, along with Ryan. How did that go, guys?
Great. It was a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, we just wanted everyone to start getting a feel for what we have out there and what's been maintained and what a great job you guys are doing with the trails. So I don't know if you've had a lot of chance to look at what we put together, and I have to thank Ross for doing the maps and all of that. I was so happy when he did it. So I guess, does anyone have any questions about it?
Actually,
The connection getting across 196 down by the river was a potential issue, but it looks like you've overcome it.
We certainly have. And we've also, River Road, once that gets approved, there was a problem where the road was a paper road, but I actually went to the homeowner that it was a problem with, and I worked it out with him. He's actually given us, he was worried about his little dog, because his little dog would go after the ATVs, and he was really afraid. So he was actually very nice and gave us an option, but also Gary Brissett has another option with somebody else on River Road for connection. If I'm making any mistakes, you guys speak up, okay? Because they know the trails better than me. I'm just the big mouth. So I'm just kind of like trying to trudge through this. So I think we've covered all bases, and I really think this is going to be awesome for our town. If you really think about what we can do with this for the businesses, connecting Lisbon Falls, Bowdoin. Right now it's tough for Lisbon because we can't even get gas over there. We have no connections. Lisbon Falls, has, gas and stuff, but we can't connect to Lisbon. So it's nice to have a longer ride. We'll actually have people use our town for a destination. Right now, if it's all choppy and they're not connected, they're probably not going to trailer out here to use our trails. But if you haven't gone for a ride and you missed out on the last one, just let us know and we'll take you out to either Lisbon Falls, or even Bowdoin, because Ed here, he's the trail master for Bowdoin as well. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great time to just forget about the worries of life, riding around your ATVs and the snowmobile trails. I think we're all set with those, right, guys? There's connections. I think we're fine with those. So, do you guys have any questions now?
Any questions?
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
Overall, no, I think it's a great plan overall. I have a little bit of concern about the area where you're going, using the trail to go under 196. I just want to make sure that, we have something like posted 5 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Because you have people with little baby carriages, and little dogs and stuff under there. I want to make sure
we
that
totally will have that covered.
Sharing of the road with the
absolutely. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's very important, and I want to make sure that we post it with something and people are aware of it.
No, so true, Mark. Yeah, that would be the biggest. Yeah. So we're good at signs, and luckily we're not having to do it so quick, it'll be for next season, so we should have plenty of time for that. Harry, did you have a question?
How is the river being crossed again?
Well, so we're going to come down River Road, and then when we get to 196, there's a short section where we just travel over in the breakdown lane, and the owner of the Big Dipper building, which is a crafts, I've actually spoken to him personally. He's given us permission to just kind of jog over his property onto the little section of the walking path, and there's a small section you would just drive. We would have signs there, very slow driving, and then go through the parking lot and then down Frost Hill, and then the trail's right there on Route 9.
So you're crossing the bridge?
We would be
on 196?
under the bridge. I mean,
Where are you crossing?
You go
yeah,
across the
yeah,
river
sorry,
and-
sorry.
Right,
Where are you
Yeah.
crossing the water?
On
railroad tracks?
the bridge.
196 bridge.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
going over it and then under
There's
it.
like-
196.
right, where the breakdown lane is.
But not crossing
Yeah.
the road.
Not crossing the road there, because I actually went out there and walked it, and I even decided, like, taking a left there would be really tricky, because the cars are kind of coming fast. And I thought, that's when I walked that area, I found that other option, and I thought that would be very doable.
Yeah, I think going back up to Crafts Annex
Yeah.
and then back down around is a great idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Very safe.
We had
Does-
the warden service join in on the meeting as well to chime in. I mean, that's their expertise, and actually he was in favor of that as well, going along in the breakdown lane to turn,
Yep.
go over. I think I was pretty forward, not crossing 196 there, creating an interruption. I wasn't for, but
I think it'll work out well. We just did a ride the other night, and we were doing Capitol Ave and down 196 and at the light. It all works out fine. I mean, it seems weird riding down the road, but up north it's normal. So, yeah.
Well, just bicycles do it all the time along there. So it's like that's the route.
Yeah, now they have bikes with the motors on them, so.
Yes, I
Yeah.
know they do. I have one.
Any other questions for
All
Cheryl?
right, yeah.
before we-
Is there any plan to revisit that? You're going to do the railroad trestle. Is that going to be?
That's going to take a while, but yeah, that'll be awesome when we get it, but that's probably going to be a ways out. Yeah. And once we do that,
Let's go right down there.
yeah, once we do that, we can eliminate some of the other options. You know, we'll always take the safer course. Good questions.
Now, when Roger was here, he mentioned raising the speed limit. Is that part of this?
I think we're okay for now. We don't want too many changes at once, right, Ryan? I mean, that's. Okay,
Yeah.
whatever you guys want. I'm not trying to ask for too much at once. Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I'm Ed Barrett, president of the Lisbon Hardcore Riders Club. 10 miles an hour is good around town, and I've heard it from a lot of people that live like on Wing Street and Summer Street, and they like the 10-mile-an-hour speed limit. They don't want to raise. They want to keep it at that, and which is good, which is good with us. But on the back roads like the Bodenham Road, the Webster Road, we should raise it to 20, because otherwise we're pretty much targets.
Right, right.
And there's not a lot of traffic if you actually go sit down there. And I've sat down there and watched because our trail comes out on the Bodenham Road. But, yeah, 20 miles an hour seems to be good. And people are pretty respectful going around you and stuff. And it's not crazy speed. And that's what we're going to do from Bowden. From when I come from Bowden to Lisbon Falls, I'm at 20. So I'd like to keep it uniform if we can. And that's all I got.
Aaron Martell, longtime resident of Lisbon, since 4 years old. So for me, this weekend when we were out riding, I think when we were downtown, holding the right, trying to get to Capitol Ave, I think we were kind of more of a dangerous situation than when if we just take the lane and go with traffic. I don't expect to do this on all road access. I did some riding up in Greenville, and for like 10 miles I rode part of the traffic, 25 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour zones. I felt much safer doing that than our little ride this past weekend. So my 2 cents, hopefully you can consider that, but it's not a deal breaker. Thank you.
Good evening, Ross Cunningham, Economic Development Director. I did just want to throw my support behind this from an economic standpoint, not from a public safety standpoint, but in that if we can truly create a system of trails between us and Bowden, that will certainly serve as an attraction and bring people to our region. And if the railroad trail goes through, we'll have connections all the way up through Lewiston. So I'm a big fan of this and in support of it. Thanks.
You have to speak into the microphone. Thank you.
It will be the largest trail system below Bangor if we combine these 3 clubs together. This will be the largest trail system, you know. So that's something pretty exciting. We think so, anyways.
Yeah, you should be able to get a lot of good advertising out of that for the public. Yeah, pull in people.
Hi, I don't own an ATV or anything, but I actually run, and I've been using those trails for running. And the ATV club, you know, I think I'm here tonight because I sent a check to Cheryl because whenever I'm on the trail, it's the riders are so courteous and respectful. I feel like I'm on their trails, and they're treating me like they're on my trails. So I just really have a lot of respect for what they've been doing, and this additional connection just keeps runners like myself off roads, which is extremely dangerous right now. I love all the trail systems in Lisbon. It's just amazing for runners and trail runners. So,
May we have your name?
Oh yes, it's Mariette Hanlon. Sorry.
Hi, good evening. My name is Glenn Lednam. I'm here representing Positive Change Lisbon. I just kind of wanted to give you a brief summary of why we're asking to close the streets down, or close Main Street down. I'm going to take a look at the second page of this. What this is, well, I'll wait till I... I'll give you one for procedural.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks. So as you can see on the second page here, this is the events that we're hoping to do on the October 14th and the 28th. I did ask that we close down that portion of Main Street of a few hours early to allow us to kind of get everything set up. I don't expect takedown to take nearly as long as setting up, because just, you know, the things involved to set up. My personal and our hope from a Positive Change Lisbon aspect is so that we can kind of use these, especially with the road somewhat being kind of finished, use these events as a, hey, we're back in business, we're open, and really kind of let the community know, hey, come down. You know, I've spoken to a lot of community members that were kind of hesitant just because of all the construction and all of that, and now that everything will be somewhat cleaned up, this will be a great opportunity to kind of show the community that, hey, come on down. And these are some great events. You know, if you love great beer or, you know, live music, these are a great way to kick off the fall season. And, you know, I mean, Main Street has been, you know, in dire straits for a while now between the pandemic and all of that. So, you know, any event that we can do like this down there, you know, is good for our community as a whole. The more we can do things like this, I promise not to ask to close the road down every single month, but the more we can do events like this, you know, we can bring out of town, you know, just kind of get the whole community back on Main Street again. Hopefully, that is the hope. Thank you very much.
Any other takers for audience participation? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, please.
Next item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are considered routine and will be considered for adoption by one motion with no separate discussion unless a councillor requests an item be removed. Any councillor wishing to remove an item may do so now. Order 2022-209 to approve the municipal accounts payable warrants, $370,891.03. Municipal payroll warrants, $289,215.33. School accounts payable warrants, $787,980.91. School payroll warrants, $376,310.31. The minutes of September 20th, 2022. To set a public hearing for October 18th for a medical marijuana manufacturing facility license for 207 edibles. And next, Seniors Plus Memorandum of Understanding for October 1st, 2022 through September 30th of 2023. And authorization to accept prepayments on fiscal year 2022 commitments.
A motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Seems strange not to do a roll call vote tonight.
Less stressful. We have them coming.
Next item, please.
Council orders, resolutions, and ordinances. Order 2022-210, Riverside Trail Riders ATV Road Access Increase Request.
Entertain a motion for discussion.
Make that motion.
Second it. Go ahead, Don.
All right. Chief, would you mind giving us just an update where you
Yeah.
where we're at?
So as far as the ATV road, we met with both ATV clubs. We've had some meetings. We had representatives from Central Maine Power. We also had the Warden Service there. We discussed the roads. I actually even took it one step further, reached out to the town's attorney with concerns, which I should be doing, making sure that, if there was ATVs on the road, if the council approved this, what type of legalities and liabilities are there. For us, opening the roads, because they do it all over the state doesn't create the liability. The liability would be created after the fact if we start getting complaints and issues of ATV riders, and it wasn't immediately addressed. So I can say right now with the roads that are open, we've only had one incident, and it wasn't somebody that was even part of the ATV club. So we've only had one incident in all the years that's been open. So, and I've made it known at the meetings, if there was an issue, the clubs obviously would jump on top of it as well. Obviously, it would be documented through the police department, and we would have to address it immediately if there was any type of safety concerns or issues. I did bring up my concerns, which I said earlier, as far as going on 196. There is an adequate breakdown lane there to go over the bridge and then go off onto the Big Dipper property. I did have concerns if ATVs were stopping in the breakdown lane and waiting to turn, because that can get congested. Especially we know how people can jack on their brakes and everything else. So I have to think of the safety of the people that are riding through there. And then obviously the ATV club was really good in talking about making sure that the walking path in that very short distance was posted, and listening to concerns of people that use the trails as well. So we talked about all that, but we also talked about these access roads. That's the beginning, having the access roads. They can only go so far on a road if they don't have the access road, and they're looking at extending their trails as well. Cheryl reaching out to a representative from Central Maine Power and actually having him here that night and willing to work with the ATV clubs to actually get some of the power lines in the community to actually be trails, and then work with homeowners to get more trails in the town. The goal is to extend the trails in the town, not on the road, but they need the access to get between Lisbon and Lisbon Falls. I have been working with the railroad, and I have been working with Lewiston Auburn Railroad, and I've been working with Maine Department of Transportation to get the railroad tracks in the town removed. So the Lisbon Falls, as we know, is Department of Transportation, and those trails there's a process to go through, and there's a state law, and I have our state reps involved with that as well. So we're working on that, and then the ownership has been changed on the other railroad tracks, that a company out of Canada, and we're working with them because there's talks of eventually those railroad tracks becoming ATV trails. Rails to trails is what they're trying to do, and eventually being able to connect not just to Lewiston, but be able to actually connect Lisbon to the Turner trails. So there's also talk, once DOT takes the trails, or once we get that approved, to get those trails removed in Lisbon Falls, behind approximately the Big Dipper to the Topsom line, working with the Topsom ATV club in order to connect, not on the railroad tracks, but to be able to connect to some trails in Topsom. So this is the first step of a lot more work that the clubs are going to do. But we have had several meetings, and they've been actually excellent dialogue back and forth. And Cheryl and the clubs have listened to my concerns, and we went for rides on the trails. But it's been great dialogue, and I guess we have to see how it goes. I'd have to say that if there's issues, obviously we're going to have to address them with the ATV clubs, but they also don't want there to be any issues either. So,
any questions from councilors? Ryan?
Well, I think, Chief, you said right from the beginning, right, the trails have been open for as long as they have been. I live near the ones that, and I don't see any issues. I see them on the roads all the time. They're following the rules. They're not creating chaos. I think eventually we'll be just as safe as they are up country, right? I mean, they're just expanding everywhere up there for all the right reasons, and the businesses are really seeing the benefit of that. So isn't the riders. So I think this is awesome.
Just to add to that as well, and speaking to the warden service, he's also made me aware of some grants through the state where we can actually get funding for enforcement. Enforcement being safety enforcement, making sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing on the trails. But that's something that the police department would be able to start applying for, is these safety grants, so we can actually pay to put an officer on where they actually are on the ATV and they're patrolling the trails, or actually going along with and doing club rides with the ATV clubs. I know that they do a lot of charity rides. I know that your club did quite a bit large charity ride. So
we do a lot of charity rides.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up.
I had a friend who lives in Ohio, and his son is autistic, and I looked around in the state of Maine. There was no autism rides here, absolutely zero. So I got together with him, emailing back and forth, and we got together with Moose Alley Riders Club up in Bingham. And it took 2 years to do it, but we created an autism ride. This past year, we actually raised $10,000 to donate to Pine Tree Camp. So it's working out. It's growing every year, and people are they come through on it. It's just awesome. The amount of people that show to these events is just unbelievable. I showed up. Usually I show up 8:10, 8:15 in Waterford for this particular ride, and usually there's 5 or 6 trucks up there. This year the whole entire parking lots were full. There was no place to park, so we had to make our own parking spots down there. But it was just awesome. Like I said, it's getting bigger every year. And there's several other charity rides. There's oh my God, I can't think straight right now. Maine Children's Cancer Program. That's another big, huge. And see, we could do that stuff down here. Once we get everything established and get insurance on the streets and stuff, then we can hold them kind of events down here, and it would bring a lot of people into town. It really would.
Any other questions from council? Chief, now there was a question about the idea of motorized vehicles on a walking path. Is there an ordinance that needs to be changed, or a description of ordinance at all for that? Or
in updating this, if this was approved, there would probably have to be wording, but there's nothing specific that I could find. No written rules as far as we can't have ATVs on the trails now. So I think this would have to be like an exception under the ordinance or an amendment.
Would that have to be done prior to us approving it, though? I mean, that would be the question, because we couldn't allow it. I know it's actually next season, right? As far as what you're hoping for.
Yeah.
We could adopt with the understanding that it's based on the change in the description of what can and what can't be done on our trails, and it would have to be limited to certain areas and stuff, I'm sure. So
it would literally be only underneath the bridge. To go underneath the bridge, that would be it. It wouldn't be the rest of the trail.
There are signs out there now that say no motorized vehicles.
Yep.
So.
Do you ride your bike on there? Disregard. Keep going.
Taking the fifth.
Disregard. It's brought up to me. But I can look into that further.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I just want to make sure that we actually cover it, because I know that was just a concern prior, and so. Do we, if we were to, Lisa, if we would actually, would we have to amend that to actually the motion that's on the table, as far as if we were going to make it to make sure that that's actually approved, as far as the change of the ordinance for the walking trail for motorized vehicles? Or
I don't think you have to change the motion as it's been made already. I think what we'll want to make sure we do, and I just made a note for it, is to make sure that the very next step we take is to adapt those trail rules so that they're in line with what the ATV clubs need. But because the intent is here, and so I don't think you have to vote on it. I think you have to vote, if you vote on the motion and continue with your intent at the next meeting or in the next month or so, then you'll be moving that forward.
So all the changes, Steve, and the connection from the Bowden to the Bowdenham Road, is that scheduled for next year, or is that something you're pretty much have in place now, right?
Right now, I'm having a warrant written up by Clifford, the lawyer over here, and I've got a petition for 189 signatures from Bowden residents, and I should get that, no problem. We have our club meeting this Thursday, and looks like there's going to be probably 100 people that show up to it anyway, at least to sign up on it. So there are things I need to know, like if the ordinance is going to stay the same June 1st, October 31st, because I have to line that up with the Bowden Club. We can't have people riding down from Bowden if it's October 31st, we close the streets down, then I have to be able to close a street from the Wag Road Trail in Bowden to the Bowdenham Road, or to our trails on the Bowdenham Road. Everything would have to line up, because we don't want, like I said, we don't want people riding down it. If we're not allowed to be on the roads, then they shouldn't be allowed to be on the roads either. So all that stuff needs to stay in line.
Is there still a plan for the group that actually got together? Is there still plans for them to meet as this moves forward, or?
Yeah, they talked about that group actually being in charge, so when these complaints come in, we'll reach out to the group, and then the group's going to also address complaints.
Okay, but I mean, is there like a every other month, or
nothing been set like that?
It was supposed to be November, right? If there was any complaints, we were supposed to, the clubs
at the end of the year.
Together and of course,
it is written now in the original ordinance.
Yeah,
if there are complaints at the end of the year, it would be brought up to the ATV clubs.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, are you looking for any of these changes to be implemented this year at all? Or are you thinking all of these are going to start next year?
Everything's probably going to start in the spring. I mean, we'll order the signs and stuff over the winter. Yeah. And I've got to order like 75 signs for Bowden and posts.
We don't want to rush it because we want it to be done right. We want it to be safe and correct. We just need the permission now so we can start ordering the signs and doing any trail work.
And that's another thing. Are the signs, are they going to stay the same between both clubs? I mean, I've already been ordering from White Sign Company.
I think that's something that we can decide as clubs. I don't think they need to decide.
Well,
Excuse me, I just want to make sure that you know that anything that isn't spoken into the microphone can't be permanent record. So we want it to be permanent record. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, when I was required to buy steel post signs for the town, they gave me the specs, what I was supposed to get. 12-foot posts. I had to buy regular street signs like what the stop signs and the yield signs and everything are on. And then I had to buy the reflective ATV signs. And this was everything they made me do. And I had to buy a 12-foot post, cut 4 feet off them, drive 3 feet in the ground, and then bolt the other 8 foot to it.
It's all state requirements.
Yeah.
We can get that all printed out for the club.
Yeah. So, and I'm going to do the same thing with the Bowden Club too. I'm going to keep everything uniform as much as I can.
Yep.
Just make it easier. I mean, I already know these guys, and I already have an account with White Sign Company, so it'd be no big deal. I'll just call them up and say, because I'm going to have a big order of signs.
You mentioned you want to try to get both clubs in line. The trails are not the same as like up in the county there, where it's May 15th to October 15th. Is that here?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
It actually all depends on where you go. May 15th is the opening day for up there, up north, and a lot of them go till snow flies. But then you got like Roxbury, they have a moose hunting season, so they shut down most of their trails in October.
Yeah.
You know, it all depends, club to club, town to town, what their ordinance.
So what is it around? What is it here?
December 15th, there's snow flies, whatever comes first.
Nice.
So and that's the way I made it in Bowden too.
Nice.
Same thing. Yeah.
I just encourage, I mean, before we take a vote, that basically the two clubs in the town keep working together, so come springtime, everything's in line and everybody's on the same page, right?
Cheryl and I are in contact like every day, every other day. So.
All right. Any other questions, council? All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Yep.
A lot of hard work there.
Yep.
You guys.
Yeah, the trails look fantastic, by the way. A lot of hard work for sure.
Springtime, be time to ride. No, I'm just new trail, just teasing. It's all good. All right, next item, please.
All right. Next item is Order 2022-211, Amendment to Library Department Fee Schedule. This is a second reading, and it'll require a roll call vote.
Make that motion.
Second that.
Any discussion? Pretty straightforward. I think Diane actually gave us all the
You gave
details.
Good
Just,
presentation.
I spoke with the library director, and she wanted to point out that she did send a second memo to clarify that the fee schedule includes not just book fees, but DVD fees.
I think whatever she actually puts forward, I think we'll all accept.
All right, ready?
Whenever you're ready.
Counselor Kane?
Yes.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Aye.
Counselor Robichaud?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, would you want to take a minute and let the ATV people leave if they want to leave?
I think
Unless
they're just so
everybody
excited
wants
they want to stay.
Maybe we should stay.
Good one.
I could see the tension.
Thank you.
Yep.
Can you tell me your last name? Thank you. Perfect. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Next item
Thank you.
is Order 2022-212, amendments to Chapter 14, General Assistance Maximums and Appendices.
I'll make
This
that
is a
motion.
second reading and will require a roll call vote. Counselor Fellows made a motion.
Second.
Yes.
I'll second that.
I'm trying to move along already.
That's pretty much been described. Anytime you're ready.
I did. I seconded it.
All right. Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle.
Yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Aye.
Counselor Robichaud.
Yes.
Counselor Smith.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed, 7-0.
Next item, please.
Order 2022-213, amendment to ground-mounted solar energy system ordinance. This is a second reading and will require a roll call vote.
Don? Anything
Oh,
on the
sure,
motion?
I'll make that motion.
Anybody second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Anytime you're ready, unless there's some discussion, but
Okay. Roll call vote. Counselor Kane.
Yes.
Counselor Fellows.
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle.
yes.
Counselor Lunt.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Aye.
Counselor Robichaud.
Yes.
Counselor Smith.
Yes.
7 yeas, 0 nays. Order passed, vote 7-0. Order 2022-214, amendments to the cannabis ordinances. This is a first reading. It'll require a roll call vote.
Entertain a motion for discussion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll second it.
All right. Is that, Glenn, would you like to just give us a quick overview of?
Sure.
You
So
prepared?
we had residents come to the town council back in early summer. After hearing their comments and discussion, we formed a steering subcommittee to evaluate our marijuana ordinance. But prior to that, you enacted a moratorium on any new retail cannabis business until the steering committee completed its work. We held a public listening session, I almost said session, sorry. And after that, we have a recommendation. That recommendation from the committee is to implement a property buffer of 2,000 feet between retail storefronts and to a minor change to the definition of a manufacturing facility, which would add cultivation, which would enable our fire chief and code enforcement officers to do an annual inspection because cultivations did not fall under that category prior. So that would be it, just so they would do their regular annual inspections, but like I said, cultivations would be added to that in the definitions and the 2,000-foot property buffer. And I believe there may be some questions from council, so feel free.
Anybody from council have any questions?
I do.
Yes, sir.
What constitutes a new business?
So there will be, so I was anticipating this question.
The reason I ask is because if one of our existing locations wants to sell the business as that type of business, and they're within 2,000 feet of each other, what happens?
Yeah, so that question came up at the subcommittee level too. So the attorney got back to us. Any pre-existing store that didn't meet those criteria would be considered a legally non-conforming use and be able to be transferred. So if a store closes, as long as the use doesn't change, you can still operate a retail store even if it's a non-conforming use. With that, I would like to recommend a minor change to the ordinance where it says no new cannabis retail store. It will say beginning on October 18th, which will be the date of the final reading. So that way it would cover that non-conforming use.
And that was our attorney's suggestion.
Correct. That's the suggestion of the township attorney.
Any other questions, council? I guess I need a little more explanation because maybe I'm not just getting it. So if it's just in business right now,
Yep.
actually is licensed correctly,
Yep.
and actually closes, they would still be allowed to be open as that business again, or at that point it would actually no longer be allowed to be open?
So if they sold the business and it transferred ownership or a spouse.
It was never closed. It was just
correct.
It was
If
bought
the
out.
use changes or if it's abandoned, then that would no longer be permitted as a
Once it's
conforming.
closed,
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah, correct.
But they can sell it as long as it's still open.
Would it actually be subject to a possibility? Would it need? I guess. Is there a possibility that someone could actually buy a business and change the name, and still remain in the same location?
Correct. Even if a new license is required, it would still be considered a legal non-conforming use.
And to clarify the point, if a business closes and it remains closed for less than, I think, a year, then it's still a non-conforming use and can be used. But we had cases in town where businesses closed and they didn't meet the criteria because that non-conforming use wasn't renewed within I think it was 2 years, but I can't remember if it's a year or 2 years. So in answer to, if I'm correct, if a business closed and then sold it, as long as it's within that criteria, they still could be a non-conforming use. And I think that's what her thing says there.
I don't want to speak for Kristen, and she's the attorney and I'm not, but if you want to bring her to the second reading to clarify that, I don't know if I would be comfortable answering that specific detail because I don't know the answer.
Could you read what she said again?
So any pre-existing store that did not meet those criteria would be considered a legal non-conforming use, able to be transferred even if a new license is required, as long as it has not been abandoned under the non-conforming use provision.
Right.
Sorry.
So that's what we need to know is what does the non-conforming
Conforming.
use provision.
What's
Is
the
that
time
a
limit?
year,
if-
2 year? Or?
Right, if they close down for a week to remodel,
It's
is that?
in our
Well,
ordinance
we do have an
now.
ordinance, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to know.
But do you know if it's a year or 2 years? I mean, that's
I remember we
not
had
that it's a
I can't
huge deal.
remember.
Every year or
remember
2
we had
years.
that
Just,
issue.
Not without looking it up, I can't.
I guess the
remember.
question is does that actually fall within the interest of what the committee was actually trying to bring forth? I guess that, because I mean, I almost didn't take that as what the committee was trying to bring forward. It may be legally all we can do, but I just don't know.
Yeah, I would definitely like to look into it further because that's not quite, I don't believe that was our intent, right? If they closed without selling it, then it could not reopen as I thought was our intent. Right? So I would like more clarification on that myself and
I would
see
think-
what our ordinance says.
I would think you would need some time limit there because if I buy the store from you and I close down for a month to remodel, is that going to be I'm abandoned and I don't have it?
Well, that's different.
Right,
What
that
I'm
needs to be
saying, if it's
clarified.
closed,
That's still an
If
if
closed
the
and it's
business goes
gone,
out of
right.
business, like Fern selling his auto body, I want to buy it. It's still open. I buy it. Now it's Roby's auto body, right? I mean, it never closed.
Right, I'm just
I mean,
saying,
our
there's
intent
actually a
was if
time
it
in there.
closed.
Yeah, if
right,
it actually
without a buyer.
ceased doing business as
Right.
that.
I believe that's what we were trying to accomplish.
I'm not sure, but I think it's 2 years. And because we were discussing that issue with, when we changed site plans, we thought if it went beyond 2 years, which was that criteria, then you needed a site plan review. And when we were talking about some other property, I can look it up, but
No, it's not a big deal. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
That's why we're having a discussion.
I think our thought process was if business A is a marijuana business and they go out of business because for whatever reason they don't make it and they close and then they put their business up for sale, that building, whatever the venue is where they're selling. Our thing was once that happens, if somebody buys it saying, I want to buy that and I want to put a marijuana business in it, our thought process was no. It went out of business,
Right.
closed.
Right.
It's not a marijuana business anymore.
then I think we
That's how
probably
we
have to
would-
change the
Yeah.
rules for that.
So the question would be, as a first reading, do we still vote on the first reading, or do we actually move and then
I
bring
thought
it?
that's isn't that in the ordinance? That it can't be.
So it's covered, the attorney's recommendation was that you didn't need to put that in the ordinance because it would be considered already a legally non-conforming use, based on how we have it written.
Would it be possible for
looking
if
at
we
that.
actually would have voted on it, move it to a second reading, and she was here, and actually maybe, unless we could run it through and maybe find out what our options are, or we could find out in between and just have them, forwarded to us. I mean, I'm not sure which is most practical, but either way, I think it'd be better, because for me, sitting through the hearings, I didn't feel that way we're talking about now was the intent of the group. But-
So if I'm hearing correctly, what that subcommittee's intent was, is if we have existing businesses within 2,000 feet of each other right now. So if somebody sells the business, they wouldn't be able to create the same type of business in that same location. Is that right?
That's right.
So,
If
yeah.
it was
I'm pretty
shut
sure-
What he read would say if it was an ongoing interest, so if they sold it as currently what it is and someone wanted to continue operating it as that business, they'd essentially be grandfathered. But if it closed, then, and it was within 2,000 feet of other businesses, then it can no longer be a marijuana business.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to have some
And
tinkering.
it's just that, it's that within what we don't know, the answer is what does that other code that it's referencing say?
Right. I mean, I would recommend you can either table it or,
Yeah, I say
So
table
the
it.
two options are to table it or to move forward and see what happens. So if you table it, then we'll come back to a first reading again and then do a second reading with a hearing. If you decide to move forward with a vote and it passes, the next meeting will have the second reading. If there are any substantive changes, you cannot make substantive changes. So it would not, we wouldn't be able to move forward from there. So if you would like to move forward, it's my opinion that if you want to move forward, tabling it would be what you would want to do so that you can pick it up again.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to table it to our next regular meeting.
I would also recommend you extend the moratorium because it will expire
That was
on
my next
October
question,
12th.
is when the moratorium was actually coming up for.
Yep.
October 18th.
When does the moratorium expire?
October 18th.
That's our meeting date, right?
I'm sorry.
The 12th, I think,
12th,
is
yes.
the moratorium.
Yes.
Meeting. And
Okay.
is the moratorium something that we can expand tonight without actually having it?
You can. You can, once we table the motion, we can have a motion made to extend the moratorium. And that would allow us to move forward with more time to resolve the issue.
So what's the proper procedure for table at this point? Do we actually just need a motion for table? Or?
So at this point, we want to, Councillor Fellows has made a motion to table and
To our next regular meeting.
to the next regular meeting.
And would you like a second on that?
Yes.
I'll second it.
This just requires a regular vote. So,
All those in favor of tabling to our next meeting?
okay.
And we actually have one extension.
All right. So we will need a motion to extend the moratorium.
Entertain a motion to extend the moratorium?
I'll make that a motion.
And the question is how long are we actually extending it for? I mean, would it make a difference?
So the standard thing to do would say 90 days because when you make the change, it immediately ends the moratorium. So,
I'd go 90 days, yeah.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
And that can just be a regular vote?
mhm.
All those in favor?
All right. So we'll put this on the next meeting on the 18th.
You did record that there was one councilor that did not vote
Yes.
in favor? Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that's on the record. That's
Mhm.
all. Thank you.
And we'll have
Kristen at that meeting.
at that meeting?
Yeah, or if I get enough
Can
clarity.
we resolve that before the meeting? and
Yeah,
just
I
have
was
it
to say if we get
ready?
enough clarity on that prior to the meeting, I just
Yeah. If she goes back and
circulate a
just kind
memo.
of watches this part of the meeting, she'll get a pretty good understanding of what she needs to do. How's that?
I'll try to summarize it just so it's not all billable hours of watching the discussion.
Well, I don't want the whole thing. She don't need to just 5 minutes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think we just did an emergency ordinance, which was that extension, and we needed a roll call vote, I believe.
You know what, I was just looking up my roll call vote thing, so give me 1 second.
So why don't we actually just follow it up with a roll call vote, just to
can.
make sure that we're
It's not gonna
actually-
hurt.
No,
we can do
no,
it
no.
anyway.
Exactly.
Just be safe. Anytime you're ready.
Okay, the roll call vote is for the extension of the moratorium. Counselor Kane?
Aye.
Counselor Fellows?
Yes.
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Counselor Moore?
Aye.
Counselor Robichaud?
Yes.
Counselor Smith?
I'm recused or
Abstain.
abstain.
Thank you. 6 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. Order passed. Vote 6-0.
So we're covered on that
Yes.
segment? Great. Next item, please.
All right.
More homework we can do, right?
Order 2022-215, the request to sign municipal plowing agreement.
Entertain a motion for discussion.
Make the motion.
I'll second it.
Brief description.
Brief description is the state wants to pay us more money. So
Nice.
15% more to plow the DOT roads in town. So it would basically go up from $21,302.26 to $24,497.60.
That looks like a schedule.
It is.
And so if we didn't ask, they wouldn't give it? Is that how that works?
No, it was actually them.
Set in stone, by the looks of things out to.
Originally it was set in stone, but because of the cost of fuel that went up, they ended up doing the cost increase.
So I have a question.
We won't be the only town good.
I have a question. I'm not sure if council has. It shows a map, and the agreement is
Route
on
9.
Route 9.
Yep.
So we actually have 3 other town state roads. How come we're not getting paid to paint this?
School Street and Upland Road.
And 125.
I don't know what the original snow and ice agreement was for this back when it was 2017, but the original agreement was for Route 9. I can find out more information.
I'm just curious because we actually just get hung out to dry on the state roads. I mean, to give you a perfect example, when they did Route 9, we were on the hook for all the polluted wells because of the salting on that. And I can't see it being any different on 125 if when they redo 125 where the wells are on Upper Main Street. So, I mean, if we're going to be held liable for anything that we do, and it's a state road, I would think that we would be, actually, to go on by mile for state road, we actually do more state road.
I'm wondering if that has to do with where the compact zone is.
Well, we have a compact zone above 125, too, that we still
I know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
where is it on Route 9?
It's not very far up Route 9.
That's what I mean.
It's
That's
just
just
there,
above
I
the
think.
hill,
It's
yeah.
at that first hill. there.
So it could be because of that, that's why they're paying above that.
Right, they pay above that out to the
But
town
125,
line,
that compact line is where
Yeah,
they're
it should be
changing the
beyond
bridge right
there,
now.
yeah.
So, I mean, above that, we're still doing all the way to the Bowden line. So,
Right.
I'm
School-
just wondering.
School Street, I'm sure
It just
would be in
seems
the
odd that
compact
we
line.
actually have an agreement for Route 9 and it's
Yeah.
paid by the mile. And
Oh.
we have these other state roads that, I mean, I'm just curious when we start redoing the
Assume
roads.
some logic somewhere.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
not.
just don't know. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, it's spelled basically just for Route 9, so.
It is.
Um,
This is a contract only for the Route 9.
Why don't we ask the state to pay us
More money.
to plow Route 125?
You can do whatever.
Caution on the
Absolutely.
24.
Well, I mean, if it's one of those things where and maybe they have a different logic than we do, but they can just say, oh, wow, you've been plowing that? Maybe we owe you back for 30 years. That would be awesome.
I'll work on that.
I kind of doubt that.
Yeah, me too. But it just seems strange that we're making an
We'll get a
agreement to
couple new plow
plow,
trucks out of
that
it.
we plow the other state roads, you
Yeah.
mean, and I just wonder what the logic is of Route 9 and whether they figure Route 9 is a more important road than 125, but I don't really know. But I just know that we were definitely, the town actually invested a lot of money on Route 9 to take care of issues when they redid the road because of us salting over the years, because we were getting paid to do it. And I assume the same thing would happen on 125 when we start going up that way, because where the water stops, we'll be going beyond that in the next phase of the 125 project. And the first thing they do is test all the wells, and if the wells come back, we're on the hook for them. So that's what happened.
125 would it also be School Street and
Upland Road, I mean, I don't know. They
Or
consider
Gould
those
Road.
state roads, but I mean, I'm not sure what level of state road they consider those. So.
I will get an answer on that to see if we can
I mean, the worst thing they
add
can just say
contracts
is no.
for the other roads as well.
No, no, and no. Man, that's all they can say, right? I mean,
It's true.
as long as that's
I'll get the 15% increase first.
Yeah.
By the way, let's now talk about our other roads in town.
Yeah.
And then I'll get an update to council.
Yeah. I mean, I was just curious. I mean, it's odd when we sign the agreement for state roads and it's only pertaining to one of them. I mean, so you never know until you ask. Are we all good? Next item, please.
Okay. We
did
didn't
vote on
actually
that,
vote
right?
yet.
We didn't vote on that, did we?
No.
And that has to be a
It's a regular vote.
regular vote. All those in favor?
Motion approved, right?
Yes, it's the motion to approve. I'll read it. Councilor Fellows, seconded by Councilor Robichaud, moved to authorize the interim town manager and public works director to sign a contract with Maine DOT with an increase of 15% paid to the town of Lisbon. That would have the payment go up from $21,302.26 to $24,497.60 this year. I saw no dissent, so order passed 7-0.
Perfect. Thank you. Next item, please.
Order 2022-216, Main Street closure dates, October 14th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and October 28th, 2 p.m. to 12 a.m.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Unless there's some discussion.
Do we have an abstention?
No, we have a discussion.
You have a discussion, okay. Don's been pushing all night, so I didn't think he wanted to talk much anyways.
No, I just wanted to say, I know for all the trouble that we had closing the street for the summer last year, I think this is a good idea. And I'd like to see us, even though the road is paved again, to be able to do this periodically in the future. The question I have is, to what degree and when do we have to ask the state? Because it's a state road.
Right.
That we don't get paid to plow.
Yeah. Right. Well, we had to do it when we closed the street permanently for like 6 months or
I think
something,
they
4 months.
extended.
And I don't know.
It's a good question. I guess we can ask because we're looking to possibly do it again in November.
Yeah.
So.
Did the town have to ask before to close it?
Yes.
State?
For a permanent closure for the summer of due COVID, we actually.
It may not cover a night closing or something,
Yeah.
but to the extent that it's in the afternoon, and sometimes you get complaints from large trucks and vehicles that need to go through there or think they need to go through there. So yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully soon we can move it to the Rumbo. We're going to close Main Street down.
Yeah.
We'll use both.
I will ask DOT when I'm on the phone with them tomorrow.
There you go.
They're not going to like you very much. No, just
Start with the increase.
get the raise. Then that's the question. So we haven't voted on this yet.
No.
Is there any other questions or concerns from council? Good point, though, Don. It is definitely worth checking on. All those in favor?
Do we have any abstentions? Thank you. Go ahead.
Are we good?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Order passed 7-0. Next item is Order 2022-217 to set the November and December council meeting dates for one meeting per month for those 2 holiday months.
Go ahead.
I was just going to give a little intro just real quick because normally we do have just one meeting in November, one meeting in December. Having one meeting months over the summer proved to have very large agendas for those single meetings. On the other hand, a lot of people make time for their families during that period. For November, I know elections will take a lot of the clerk's office time, but if it'll be up to the council. My recommendation is if you decide to have one meeting a month, to do the November meeting on November 15th after the elections, and then the December meeting for December 6th, so that the new councilors and new folks can be sworn in.
Entertain a motion for discussion from council.
I'll make that motion.
Anybody want a second? Not everybody wants. I'll second that.
Okay.
Discussion. My concern is if we may have more stuff coming up, and if the council is okay with the idea of setting these dates, but be willing to actually bring on an emergency date if needed, or two. That would be my recommendation. If not, I would actually set 2 permanent dates in both months, and that's why.
November actually has three. If you go every other Tuesday, there's 3 in November and 2 in December. So what about even just eliminating?
We're typically the first and third, though.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So when it's the 5th one, it just. Okay.
I mean, we could move that and do, instead of doing the 1st, because that's the election stuff, we could do the 15th and then like the 29th if people are back from Thanksgiving.
What is?
Isn't the election on the 8th?
Yeah, you're right.
The election is the 8th.
You're
Yeah,
right.
so
Yes,
it's
yeah.
not the-
Right. Yeah.
What is the requirement for holding a special meeting? How much time do we need?
We need to have 7 days so that we can post and we can make sure that if there are any hearings, that they get posted properly. Usually there aren't hearings for emergency meetings. So, but 7 days would allow an agenda, supporting material to be put together and put online for the public in plenty of time for the meeting. We always ask for materials to be ready by the Wednesday before the next meeting. Often that has to change as long as it's ready by Friday. We make sure that folks have the whole weekend plus Monday and Tuesday to look at the agenda and items. So 5 to 7 days, and I think the rule is 7 days. I will have to check it, but I think it's 7 days.
I mean, I'm all set with the idea of going with single dates as long as council's prepared. If we need to do some special meetings, that we come up with maybe some dates that we can do that with. But I mean, we can wait and work with that. But we just have a lot of business that we do need to take care of within a year, if possible. So, council, let's go with the dates as presented and then adapt from there. That being said,
What was it presented, the 8th?
The 15th of November, which is the Tuesday after Election Day, and the 6th of December, because there's a lot of time in between. So when in looking at the calendar, that would actually, not as much time in November, but that allows us plenty of time to have an extra meeting in December if we need one.
6 December is the swearing-in date too, right?
Yes, it is.
Councilors.
I assume that we're going to hopefully have an extra meeting in November. But let's actually, if council's all set as presented, then we can actually bring in an extra meeting if needed. Any other discussion? Any other concerns? All those in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
Mr. Chair, I have a point of order.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to revisit 2022-216 order. I'm intrigued by the clerk's question about abstention. Is that because of the Olive Pit and Councilor Kane?
We've had several abstentions today, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think we should have an abstention for that because of the Olive Pit involvement in?
For the August closure, I was told I didn't need to abstain, but I'm happy to if we feel that's
Oh, no,
conflict of interest.
I'm fine with it if we're fine with it. But I was wondering if that's why you were mentioning. Is there
No,
any
it was
abstention?
because that we had other abstentions, but it's a good point. I don't think she has to abstain because it's for the road closure, but she could abstain and we could have another vote.
I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying, I don't want to skip over that.
No,
if we shouldn't have skipped over.
Yep. No, I think that she's fine.
Okay. And I do remember.
If I'll look it up though, because that's a good point, because we'll run into this again at some point along the way. So I'll look it up and make sure. Yeah.
And more the description of why. I mean, whether it's the perception of direct financial gain or not. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I know the
That's what I
lawyers
was
always
gonna
recommend
follow.
that.
That's what I was
Perception
thinking,
of conflict of interest,
Perception,
not necessarily assuming anything about a person, but
It
just
doesn't
avoid the
hurt to
perception.
redo the vote.
Yep.
Yeah,
Just to
why don't we
authorize
just redo the vote
Why
so
don't we
we're,
just redo
so
the
we
vote?
get that cleared?
Yeah.
Yep. And it's not even that it would be, but the perception would be there. So.
And I certainly abstained from the one regarding the beer garden specifically, my liquor license.
I think you did, but
I
they
think-
said you didn't have to.
That one I did need to, but this makes sense as far as there being potential gain involved, and I'm comfortable abstaining from that.
Okay. So do we start with a new motion, or we just have a revote?
No, you have to.
We've already passed.
We have to delete the first one. Control Alt.
No, you just
delete.
have to
Make a
Control,
motion
delete.
to
It's a motion to reconsider.
Yes, we just need to pass a motion to reconsider, and then, we need a motion to reconsider on the floor. Once we have that, we can move forward.
I'd make a motion to reconsider. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And do we need a vote on that, correct?
Yes.
All those in favor of the reconsideration?
Do I need to abstain from that?
No.
With that being said, we actually need a new motion, correct?
Yes,
And the motion is the same
it is.
as what we had before, which is the idea, if you could read it, please, just to make sure it's clear.
Of course. To authorize the closure of Main Street on October 14th from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. and on October 28th from 2 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second, all those in favor? And those, all abstain?
I abstain.
Motion passed 6-0 with Councillor Kane abstaining.
Thank you, Councilor Moore. Make it more better. Next item, please.
All right. Next item is other business, council committee reports.
School committee, talked to the chair the other day. Seems things are going pretty good. They actually have some items coming up about some dress code changes and items at the school, which is kind of unique. Nothing too serious. Dress code, one of the biggest ones about hats. And it'll be worn during the day, which actually is, I guess, more of a trendy thing than anything else. But it seems our school's going pretty well and moving forward.
Right.
Planning board.
They meet next week. I have nothing.
Okay. Development committee. Ross, would you like to give a quick update while you're right here? We love to.
We continue to work on the banners. I did receive one sample. Looks beautiful, so we're going to put the rest of the designs together. Our next meeting is next Wednesday. We'll finalize the designs and get them ordered, and I actually hope to see some potential banner installations early November. So that'll be nice to have those up, and we are still sort of starting to put our fingers into the abandoned property ordinances and how to make some changes there.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Conservation committee.
Nothing to report other than the dam is being removed of the Lisbon.
What's happening?
It's pretty cool.
Yep. Parks and Rec.
I guess they had a great time in Scotland. They're going to have a workshop with the council our next meeting, and they're looking at adding swings to Graziano Square. That's all I got.
Perfect. Then when you said workshop, is that actually for the Moxie update or
Yes.
general meeting? Okay.
Yeah, for the Moxie update.
Perfect. Now, is that going to be done during a regular session or is a workshop before?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It hasn't been decided yet. I was going to recommend that we start at like 6 o'clock so that we can make the most of the council meeting time for council business.
Yeah. I would make that recommendation too. Just maybe we can work with Mark on that.
Start the meeting.
Is that our next meeting?
Yes, the 18th.
Isn't that candidates night?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
So that's
Thank
not
you.
gonna
It is candidates night. Candidates night begins at 6 o'clock.
I would say, why don't we actually just have you folks regroup and figure out what the best method is, and then we'll go forward.
Okay.
How's that? Instead of trying to figure that
I'll
out
talk to
tonight.
Mark and see what we can figure out.
Perfect.
We might have it.
All right. Budget committee, county?
What's going on, Mark?
I don't know what's going on with you.
So, yes, we actually had a request last time. Did we get any feedback besides?
We did that they weren't able to make it. I heard back from one, and the other person I did not hear back from.
So we have to remember that next year when we do our voting, that we need to be a little bit more preemptive ahead of time to maybe get one of our members voted in.
Yeah,
I've asked for more advance information too so that we can make sure council is advised.
Very cool.
We did not, to be clear, we did not get that.
Yeah.
And this has effects not just with our budget, but last night I attended the University of Maine Cooperative Extension that we were invited to, and they have a part of the county budget as well, and they really rely on that funding, and they're looking at a substantial cut. And when they were discussing it, they said, hopefully the representative from Lisbon is able to support us, and I was able to explain that this year they're both from Savannas, which they had obviously had concerns with as well, that two people from one community could be on that. So next year we definitely need to make sure that we have
Taxation without
Voice.
representation, I think that's what it's called, so we need to actually figure that out, right?
Here.
All right. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that the county's so slacking on money that they have to cut people's budgets, because I'm sure they didn't get any millions of dollars from CARES Act or anything, so, right?
It's the only one I've heard of so far that was being cut, but I heard that was.
We shall see how that plays out. And again, nothing against it, because the county does have a lot to do, but in the sense that it would be nice that when the budgets do come up, I'm not sure if our people have an interest in actually going to the budget hearings, but if we're able to post them, which I know you do regularly share them with the council as far as the agendas, as these come up, it would probably be good for a number of us to actually show up and show a presence, I mean, if nothing else. At least have the people that are supposed to represent us know that we're being there to watch, if nothing else. Next item would be the Water Commission. No, Library Board, sorry.
Well, we had a incident there with flooding in the front of the building. I think it was because of the construction and the rain. I think Ryan has some more information. I don't know if you want to give that now or during your manager's report.
Yeah, I get quite a bit. I can give it during the town manager's report.
Okay, sure.
Yep, perfect. But it is being addressed. And anything else from Library?
That's all I have.
Perfect. Water Commission.
You heard it all tonight from
Absolutely.
Chuck, so that's pretty much where it's going.
I'm glad he came in. There is a lot happening.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm kind of curious to see the feedback of the community when some of this happens. And I'm not sure if the town's prepared to just do a quick redial for anybody calling into, because I'm sure the town, it is very confusing. A lot of people, how people relate to the town as the water department too, which we are one community, but on the other hand, we may be fielding some calls, and it'd be nice just to actually have the correct links to make sure they get to the right places, right?
Yeah, they've I don't know what else. Never mind.
No, there's a lot going into it, and it's been coming on for a long period of time. They do have a lot of stuff going on. It was interesting hearing some of the old piping that they found on Main Street for sure.
I guess the encouraging thing is that I'm told that Village Street's piping is much younger than that over there.
That's correct, and I confirmed that with Chuck.
I live in that neighborhood, and I can tell you can taste Lisbon Falls water. You can taste the difference absolutely 100% from any other water. That whole section that comes off of Main Street, that's where my water comes from.
You're so high on the hill, you may be getting different water than everybody else. So,
I mean,
Top of the
that's
tank.
why, I had questioned him about the quality because, I could ask the council, does anybody here drink the tap water?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Nobody in my neighborhood does.
Nobody, no.
I
Lisbon, not where I am.
I know if you actually get people to come in and actually check the water quality, they actually have a pretty good idea what water is. And again, it's one of those things where I think as long as we're working towards improving, that is actually always a good thing. So it's good to hear that we're trying to improve it. Finance Committee. Anything happen to the Finance Committee at this point in time?
Nothing. I think they're looking for work,
Yeah.
to be honest with you.
So I think we can actually kind of
need
figure out where we
members.
go with that and actually come up with some. I know we have plenty of projects to work on. It's just a matter of prioritize which one do we want to do first.
Members?
Do we need two, Kayla?
But I think you still need
Two
more
members?
members also.
Three.
Right.
Is that advertised on the front, sign out front?
We
As
don't
much,
even
you
have
know?
enough.
We need members on lots of committees, so there's a committee and board, but we can, maybe we have filled a lot of spots in the recent meetings, so we could revise that so it freshens up and makes a little more notice on the sign for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, because the problem I have right now is, if one person can't make it of my 3 people, then
It's not a quorum, yeah.
That's not a quorum, right, yeah.
Well, coming up to the next budget season, we want to get some people on there and to help out. Next item, please.
Next item is the town manager's report.
So, to Mark's point, the Lisbon Falls Library has certainly had a few hardships with the construction on Main Street. Recently, the stairway into the basement in the children's room area had water that flooded in from the front of the building, the fire department side at Main Street side of the building. We did have Serpro come in and clean the area and also remove all the wet drywall. We're in the process of getting the drywall and all that fixed and started over the weekend, and they're finishing that up. That way the children's area can be opened back up. It's an old foundation. It's a brick foundation, and obviously with all the rollers and construction on Main Street, was a little concerned that that's why the water came in, not just with the pavement, but with all the moving, and there's in that one area. I spoke to McGee Construction. Last week we made some phone calls to see if I could get a company out here to seal it. And I actually ran into some roadblocks there with getting anybody to even come out. And I'm on a time crunch because they are paving next week. So I spoke to McGee Construction, and they agreed to help me out. And they've actually, this afternoon at 3 o'clock, I met with them down there. They dug out the front of the foundation for us. And tomorrow morning, Public Works is going to seal the front of the foundation for us. So we dug it out tonight, barricaded it off so it could dry, and then tomorrow they're going to seal it. So that way we don't have any concerns with water intrusion after we pave it. So that worked out really good. So thank you very much to Public Works for the help on that. Also, there was an issue where a dump truck hit the side of the building the other day and took the internet lines down. So that was another issue we dealt with. So they're going to be replacing the molding on the building as well on the fire department side. We already got the internet taken care of. So poor library. So that was all that. It's been interesting over there. Also, but I will say the construction company has been great to deal with. They've been very professional, and they're trying to do a lot of work in a short amount of time and short-staffed as well. But they are been great to deal with. Speaking about Public Works, they got a lot of projects going on right now. The salt shed, just an update on that. That will be completed. Tentative date is before the end of November to have the salt shed up. Also, I spoke to the Public Works Director about sand, and he says that they will not need to order any sand for the winter. He says that they have more than enough sand for the winter, so that was a good update. Awesome. In regards to salt, they do have enough for a few storms, but once that salt shed's built, they're going to get it filled right off. But they don't want to obviously have to move it around. So moving ahead, I've been in talks with a company called GoNet Speed. GoNet Speed is the direct their competition against Consolidated Communications, and they'd reached out because they said they wanted to put put fiber network in the community. And I said, well, someone else beat you to it. However, I said there was one community in the community that did not have the opportunity to get that, and I said it was Town and Country. He was very interested. I explained it was underground. He still was interested in doing something. They have secured contracts down in Topsom area and also the Lewiston area. So now we're in the process of now having conversations about they want to get a 24 by 24 foot easement. They've requested some town property to get a 24 by 24 foot easement to essentially do like a generator pad and a propane tank setup. But we're going to have more discussion, and the manager team will meet with him and discuss that a little bit further. I think before we make any decisions on that, it'd be nice if we could address all the residents. So if they can do something, because there's several neighborhoods in Town and Country, and they know that I'm interested in seeing that through. So I also reached out to Consolidated Communications and let them know, hey, you have a little bit of competition in the community, and they're looking at Town and Country as well. So, and they're also looking at putting a 24 by 24 site somewhere on town property. So we'll let the two of them work on that, and I think somebody's going to propose something further for the town.
I'm not sure who they're talking to, but I've referred them to the site manager, and I haven't heard anything back, so I don't know.
Excellent. So it's another opportunity, so we'll see what comes out of it, but I know that there's quite a few residents that live in there, so we'll see how that goes. And then just the University of Maine Cooperative Extension, I was just going to touch base on their annual meeting was last night. I already touched on the commissioner's report that they talked about it as well. But I will say the Maine Cooperative Extension and 4-H program, they do a lot with the 4-H program, not just agriculture, but also gardening, which I didn't know about, and we have that right in our community. I explained to them that our Main Street getting a facelift, we're also going to have big flower planters hanging from the lights downtown. And where we have the cooperative extension right at their front door, the interest that they may have in maybe gardening or having help with the flowers and so on and so forth. So we had that talk. They definitely had some concerns about the lack of, because I haven't seen any irrigation plans. They have concerns that where there's no irrigation to all those flower pots. Of course, it's too late in the process now to even change anything. So we'll have some more talks and see what we can come up with. But it's nice to have that resource where we might be able to work something out with them there. And just wanted to bring that up tonight. So that's about it for the town manager's report.
Is it that area the only area that's not getting digital from fiber optics from the cable?
Town and Country is the only place
that would be serving.
That we would not have fiber optics from Consolidated. However, GoNet Speed seemed very interested.
You would
Get
think
them to compete, have two competitors.
You would think that
keeps the price down.
Yeah,
you think if it's
exactly.
going to serve that area that maybe they can actually.
There's 145 sites in there, so.
You would think that they would be interested in maybe providing the 24 by 24 location on that site, so they could actually provide that service instead of actually doing it in the town property. If that's the area it's serving,
Yeah.
you would think the closer the better, right?
They did say they wanted a 196 area because they have a big location in Topsom, apparently, and a big location in Lewiston, so essentially they wanted it right on the 196 coordinator. So, but that's something that could certainly be brought up, but maybe by management or something. Yeah, so, 24 by 24 foot area is a large area. Originally they wanted it in front of the town office.
If it's only serving that one community, I would think that they would actually be able to facilitate that locally.
There are revenue opportunities to entertaining their meeting, so I would.
There is a 15,000. Their offer right now on the table is $15,000 for an easement. My offer is free internet to all the town buildings. Sounds more pleasing, but I'd have to bring that in front of council. So we have a meeting coming up, and we will have a follow-up for council with more info on it.
Yeah, I would be interested to see if they could offer some sort of dark fiber circuit for our town buildings as we build out. So, and having dark fiber can also be an economic development driver too. So
I'm kind of surprised that the company that did the main build in town didn't ask for that prior to doing the build, but.
Just for your record, the GoNet Speed would serve all of the community. They have to buy into Fidium's lines.
Gotcha.
And so they still provide service to the entire community, but the option here is that they would then build out Town and Country and provide it as well, and probably Fidium would have to buy into those lines to offer competitive services at that level. So they just have to buy into each other's lines, but our approach here is to try to get them to provide service to Town and Country where it doesn't exist. And this is more of a trunk to get from Topsom to Lewiston than to actually provide service in those.
Gotcha. So it wasn't buying into the lines; it was actually permission to put their lines on the poles. So when I spoke to him, it was actually they would need the permission to add their lines to the poles,
which we can't give anyways. That's something they have to get through Consolidated, right?
So by law, they have to give permission to put them on the poles, but the law also states they have to give them permission.
Interesting. But either way, I mean, I think we have a management team in place to
reason
figure
I
that out.
mentioned the area in Town and Country for putting that access, or that 24 by 24 site, there is no area that big.
Oh, okay. It is a pretty big area. I mean, there's no question about
That's the issue. Because there's nothing else that can even go in there.
If you put a 24 by 24 area on the town property here, that would be a pretty substantial.
But there is.
Yeah.
No, I can think of another property that's close by that might be available, which is close to a pizza shop in Lisbon. So
the question is
that's
whether
a town. Belongs to a separate department of the town, but it's there.
And the question is on those properties who actually is the owner of them. So that's something we have to figure out.
We hold the.
It's being looked into.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, interesting. One of those. Would you call it dark fiber type communication issues?
Sounds illegal.
Yeah, it's all good. Any other questions as far as the chief on his
To clarify, it's an unlit fiber line you could build out in the future. So like if there was a future public safety building, we would have conduit, or we would be able to link the buildings through a dark fiber circuit. So.
And I know sometimes it's beneficial for public safety issues where you're not on the regular internet, so you're not going to be hacked the same way. I know for a 911 system,
correct.
They have that where it's a separate physical line that's not shared with the regular internet.
It's a dedicated circuit that would be the town's. And
It'd still be shared on the same lines, but actually would be a separate circuit, right? In a sense, yeah. Interesting stuff. I guess it's a lot I don't know about, so.
That
As
dark
long as
fiber's
someone
over my
knows
head.
something about it, that's great.
I'd refer to Harry if I had questions about
Dark fiber.
that, actually.
Apparently, the dark fiber is over
Yeah.
here.
Were you using dark fiber when you went like non-existent on you? We could see you, but we couldn't hear you. I mean,
That's right.
that was dark fiber. Next item, please.
Next item are appointments. We have none. After that, Councilor Communications.
I thought the appointment, we're not doing Rick Roberts.
Oh, I'm sorry. You are
as
correct.
the appointed
I'm
warden.
sorry.
I know Rick would
Yes,
be very
I was
offended.
looking forward to this. Yes. Rick Roberts has been our elections warden for many years and only missed a couple elections. He's very skilled. He also has a deputy warden. It's a great opportunity to have a well-balanced polling place, and he brings a lot to the election day for all the election workers. So I was very pleased that he said he would be willing to do it. So
You've done the proper background checks on this guy. He's okay.
yeah, he's background checked. So we would need a motion to appoint Rick Roberts as warden for the elections.
And second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Thank you.
He does a wonderful job, so I'm sure he'll be fine.
I don't get things on the agenda very often. I left my own off. Okay, thank you.
I didn't know if we might have actually skipped over Rick, you know?
No, I'd never do that.
All right, next item, please.
Next item is, after the appointment, is Councilor Communications.
Sir?
Yes, maybe I should have brought this up under the planning board, but SpringWorks presented to the planning board their plans in a preliminary meeting, wanting to get together and wanting the planning board to go over and look at the site again. They also wanted the town council to possibly at the same time or at a different time to go do a same walkthrough over at SpringWorks and look at what was going to be doing. Jim Howard, who is the company behind their expansion, was at the meeting the other night, and he's the one that asked if the town council could meet as well. Not necessarily, well, it is a meeting because it's the town council, but to do the same walkthrough that the planning board's done and take the benefit of the explanation of what they're planning to do. My suggestion was, if we were to do that, and I think I mentioned it to Fern, was that if we were to do that, let's don't do it at night. The planning board has one set up for 6 o'clock, I think, at this coming meeting, but it's going to be dark soon, and I spoke to the chair, and he spoke to me and said, is it possible that we could do this with the town council during daylight hours sometime? So I'm thinking probably a Saturday, but
when the planning board does a site walk like that, is that actually scheduled as a regular meeting for them? Is that actually?
It's scheduled as part of their meeting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, if the council was there as a
It would be a
quorum,
regular meeting.
It would have to be a regular meeting.
So sometimes the planning board does, usually they do them right before a meeting, but in the wintertime or fall when it's dark out, they do have to meet at different times during the day so they can see what they're see what they need to see. So it would need to be a meeting, but it could be a special meeting, and just be as long as we have an agenda, do a roll call, and make sure it's allow the public.
The question is, will they be acceptable to public being if?
They are well aware of the fact that it would be a meeting and that the public has to be included.
Okay, I just want to make sure that.
The public would have to be able to attend.
Correct.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. We would. I would have to look into the recording, but the key is that no decisions can be made without a motion, just like a normal meeting. All the same rules apply, even if we're all, if everybody's standing together in a group. So, but it would be an actual meeting.
The biggest thing with a site visit is it's kind of like one of our former chairpersons used to say it's like herding cats, to get everybody to stay in one location and not wander off talking separately. That's the one thing that they caution you on in a site visit is don't do that.
We would just have to be diligent.
Let's ask the question of council. How many people are interested in doing a visit or walkthrough? Has anybody been through
Well,
this?
What is the quorum for this council?
We have a 7-member board, so a quorum is 4.
That's right, 4.
Any
So
more
how
than
many councils can get together before they can't get together?
We don't recommend more than 2. 3 is the limit. If you have 4 councilors, you have a decision-making body.
We did this walkthroughs 2 at a time. That way we would avoid all of the hassle of
It puts a bad light if you all are doing the same thing all at different times specifically to avoid having a meeting. It doesn't put a good light on it.
I would actually,
we're not
my recommendation would be.
laundering money. We're just going to look at a business over here that wants to expand.
My recommendation would be is if the planning board would rather do that on a Saturday, which I think would be good because it's actually daylight, that we actually just, pick 2 representatives of the council to actually do a walkthrough with them and come back with information. I mean, I've walked through the facility. I haven't seen their expansion plans yet. So, I mean, I just don't know if.
That's a good compromise, to send representatives for council, and then later on, if other councilors would like, they could possibly request a separate tour.
But I mean, that's
individually.
just me. I mean, I'm willing to hear anything from council what you want to do. I mean, the idea of setting it up as a regular meeting seems like it may be a little. Just our tour that we did with Positive Change one time, it was very difficult because the way the setup of the location was that none of us are really together at any point in time. I mean, there's no narrow aisles that you walk through of some of the. So it's kind of, as Don mentioned, it's very difficult sometimes to actually be there and actually conduct anything.
I mean, I think we could just call it a meeting for the purposes of the law, but we're not going to actually conduct a meeting with business or anything. It's just so the public can be there. If somebody wanted to follow us around, they could, but they probably won't.
Yeah, that's not something I think you should fear because you can't get the public to come here, let alone.
No, I'm not so much worried about public. It's just the idea of the logistics of a meeting, if that's what we need to do. That's all.
Just post it to advertise to the public so they know.
Yeah, it's not actually. I mean, if the council would like to do that, it's simple. So we just have to make sure there are no. We just need to follow the same rules we always follow. That's all.
My biggest concern is the idea we actually go through the works of a meeting and then actually we have 2 councils show up and then it's really all for nothing, right? In a sense where.
And you have no quorum, so then you can't have a meeting.
Go on the tour anyway.
Yeah.
Because you have to have 4 to have a meeting.
Right, but we're not trying to take votes. We're trying to make it so the public is aware they can be there and watch us. So we're not going to secretly conspire.
You actually have a vote.
Yeah, we take a vote that we start a
meeting,
but if you don't have a quorum, then it's no meeting.
What's the thoughts of the council? I mean, we're probably way overthinking this. So.
Yeah.
I think that we have to think about the development and the potential development, and I think that group would like to put a good foot forward with the town.
So do you think it's important that we're there with the planning board?
Pardon me?
Do you think it's important that we're there with the planning board?
Not necessarily. I just think that they would like to do the same thing in a daylight hour, I think.
I mean, my recommendation then would be the idea, let the planning board actually schedule a Saturday visit, and we can actually advertise it as a meeting, and who shows up, shows up.
We can do that.
And that way there, it's actually, the opportunity is there for us to go if we can, but it wouldn't be forced to go. Put it this way, no one would be party to not go to the meeting if they didn't show up, right? But, I mean, I do think it's important the planning board sees it during daylight. I mean,
and it's a big project in there. It's really going to be large and add a lot of jobs.
300.
Yeah.
Who actually, I mean, if we're doing this as a showing our goodwill as a community, and which we should be, right? Because it's a big project. I mean, do we actually plan on having a department there also? I mean, as far as management.
I'll be there.
And economic and anybody that could actually have an interest in it, maybe fire chief. But again, I'm not sure how many of these people have already toured this site.
We've all toured it.
Yeah.
Actually, several of us have been there multiple times now.
So it's probably not necessary then, is what you're saying.
I would go just to show support.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm I've been there 2 or 3 times too. However, I'm just relaying the request of the parties.
But the investors that you're talking about probably won't be there that day.
Yes, he will.
He will. Okay, I thought you mentioned he probably wouldn't be there that day.
He wasn't going to be there at the meeting they were having for the for the planning board right away, because he's going to be out of town. But after that, he's available. He was setting it up with just making sure it worked for the planning board. So I haven't talked to the planning board officially. I don't know for sure what they're doing, but I think they're supposed to meet. And I thought it was at this meeting coming up, but I can't remember for sure. So I'll make some contact and so forth. And this meeting coming up, to me, I would think that you'd want the principals all there if you're going to have this. So it would have
Meaning
to
as
be
far as the walkthrough.
Yeah.
No, I'm all about the idea of supporting the project. It's just a matter of logistics is more the concern than anything else. But
when we hired the previous manager,
whether we go as a council or whether we go individually with the other people that are going. So either way, I'll go either way.
Do
Consider
we
minimizing
have a
the
date,
impact
man?
on the business.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, the fewer times they have to do this.
Oh, absolutely.
Whatever. The one date, I thought the date that they had picked was 6 p.m. before the upcoming meeting, but I can't remember for sure. I haven't watched them.
I guess, let me, not to extend this too long, but is the intent to actually look at the site of the new project or actually tour the facility that's already operating? I guess if we're not doing the tour through the facility, that's not a big factor because we're just going to be in an open area that is probably has stakes in the ground, right? And that's kind of, is that the thought? Or because the planning board's not going to go through all the other buildings. They're just going to where the new construction's
The
going to be.
planning board's taking the total tour, as far
They
as
are.
I know. Yeah.
Okay. I was just curious on, typically they don't, when they go to a site plan, they basically go to site review. They go to see the site of where it's built, not so much a tour of the facility, but.
And I'm sure they'll walk through an existing building and say it's going to be like this, but bigger and so forth and so on.
Let's work out the details, let's schedule it and make it happen, that's all.
Got it.
Hard hats, make sure, no, just.
I'll have our economic community development director and the clerk and myself will reach out to the planning board chair and we'll reach out to Springworks Farm and we'll get a date set and we'll let everybody know.
Because I have talked to Bill last night. He asked me to do the same thing. He said he couldn't come, but he would like to coordinate if he could.
I think they need more lights.
Yeah. Downwards and upwards, is that what you're thinking?
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's good enough.
I
We'll
can
move forward.
already read the newspaper at midnight when they get their
The Hubble
things
telescope.
going, because I live like next door.
And it's going to
See,
actually
there are
increase.
advantages for you.
Anything else as far as council communications? All right, that being said, next item, please.
Next item is audience participation and response for new items. At this time, those in the audience who wish to speak may approach the lectern to address items or issues that are not on the agenda. Please use the microphone and state your name for the record.
And we'll open that up, one at a time, please. Single file line at the middle. Seeing no movement, next item, please.
Next item is executive session, Order 2022-219, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 4056A, Personnel Matters.
Entertain a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And second, all those in favor? Will we be making a vote? There's really nothing to vote on.
There might be a vote.
There may be a vote?
There
Okay,
may be a
there's
vote.
potentially a vote at the end of this.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Have a safe ride home.
Good night.
Watch those deer out there.
You're going to drive all the way to...
There was 2 crossing Frost Hill when I was on the way here.